All right, perfect. Welcome everyone to the Art of Persuasion with Namada. Just to kick us off, we've got our acknowledgement of country, and in the spirit of reconciliation, the Rootlings Network acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Indigenous that are here with us today. We'd also just like to acknowledge that the Rootlings program is funded by Wine Australia with levies from Australia's grape growers and winemakers, with matching funds from the Australian government. All right, now that the acknowledgement and funding partner is over, I'll hand it over to you, Namada, to kick us off.
Thank you so much, Jenna, and hey everyone. So I will just start by sharing my screen and ping if you're there and if you can hear us. I'd love to know where you're joining from as well. If you
Hi,
can.
I'm joining from Orange, New South Wales.
Oh, nice. Welcome. Amazing. All right. So for you, Ping, and for anyone else following online in your own pace. Today's session is really going to be hands-on. So if you can grab pen and paper, or even if you're typing into your laptop, whatever that is, you'll need something to write with. Um, and the session's around persuasion, but I'm really here to talk about how stories can unlock um, opportunities in your wine career, and how that relates to persuasion. And so we're going to be doing some work around your stories today. And what I find with that is that I often hear people say, but I don't have any stories. I don't know. I don't know. And every time I run these workshops, people can actually come up with stories, but it requires you to trust what's coming up. What I find is that the stories that are there that want to be told will usually bubble up to the surface as I share certain prompts or as you hear me share things. So just trust what comes up. We all have this like critical part of our brain where we just want to analyze everything and go, is it good enough? And squash it down. So for this session, I invite you to just put that critical brain aside and trust the stories that are emerging. So, a little bit about me. My whole background has been in working with some of the world's biggest brands and helping articulate their stories. I've always been obsessed with stories, and I have created a new methodology for sharing authentic stories called story sharing, which I'll go through that methodology with you today. And I've also trained over 200 leaders in terms of personal and professional development. And I'm a mom to a toddler, 3.5 years old. So, Jenna, you can relate, how much stories are embedded into everything that they do, and how much stories play feature in their life in how they make sense of the world. So, I'd love to know from you, and feel free as well, Jenna, to chime in here. What holds you back from advancing your career, do you think? What do you think is a barrier? So feel free to shout out because we're just a small group.
Sorry, I was on mute. I would say, oh, I'm just gonna, oh, I don't need to see myself. I would say like security. Obviously, having a full-time job with leave entitlements, is very nice. So like that safety and security is really nice. And I guess sometimes it's the fear of the unknown, or potentially like the fear of asking as well for what you want. Yeah. So
Yeah.
security and fear, I guess.
Yeah. No, I get it. And I think a lot of people resonate with that. How about you, Ping? What do you think holds you back? I think you're on mute as well.
Um, I think maybe connection.
Mm,
So especially in wine industry, I feel as a foreigner, and someone who doesn't, my family is not in this industry, my friends, they are not in this industry. So it's like I feel lack of connection. So I don't know when I have problem, I don't know how to ask for someone who has the experience. I feel just naturally have the disconnection with them. I don't know how to introduce myself. I don't know
Mm.
how to ask question.
Mm.
I think that could be a problem.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. Thanks for sharing
Mm.
that perspective. And I'll share with you what I usually hear. And I think you might hear yourself in some of these things as well. So, what I usually hear when I ask this question is first one I hear is that uncertainty. And it can be different types of uncertainty, but a lot that comes up is like, am I even deserving? What am I not good enough? What if like the doubt about, am I ready? To take on something bigger or take on a new opportunity. I hear also a lot that overwhelm of like, what do I even say? And I think probably Ping, like to your point around who do I even talk to? How can I get support? What do I say to them? How do I begin that process? It can be quite overwhelming not to know where to start. And then I hear a lot is around the fear around what if they say no? Like you don't ask, you don't get rejected, right? So staying safe and not actually um, dealing with the fear. I hear that a lot. So out of these three, what do you both think? What resonates for you the most? Is it the uncertainty, the overwhelm, or fear, or could be all three?
Maybe the first two
Mm,
for me, yes.
mhm.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I would
Uncertainty.
say probably uncertainty and fear
Mm.
mostly.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, great. I mean, not great, but like great that we're clear, right? So, what I'm hoping to do with you today, and we have a short time together, right? We only have under an hour, but I really, my commitment is to really let you have that clarity around the value you bring, and the work we'll do together will allow you to see that, um, giving you the confidence to speak your worth with conviction. And finally, when you have that clarity and the confidence, I find the courage does come to make the ask that advances your career. So I want to debunk a bit of a myth, actually. So most people hear persuasion. What do you think when you hear persuasion? Like if I say you got to be persuasive, what kind of comes up for you?
I guess like making sure that they understand my point. Like my point is the most important, and yeah, I have to get a yes.
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah.
Mm.
Anything to add from you, Ping?
I just feel it's like both sides. So you need to know that you are a fit, and
Mm,
then you need to make them know that you are the fit.
mm, mm. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And what usually comes up and what I hear a lot when we say persuasion is this whole notion like I gotta sell myself, I've gotta sound impressive, like almost like I've gotta become something or do something and justify my worth. And that can put a lot of like pressure. It's like, how do I become impressive? How do I persuade, right? So I want to kind of take a bit of that pressure off and actually tell you that, to be able to ask for the thing that you want in your career, to be able to progress to the next step, actually, if you shift from persuasion and think that and have a look from the frame of connection, right? You set this point, Ping, it's like you've got to, they've got to understand what you bring, you've got to understand like that two-way connection that actually them knowing who you are and knowing what you bring, and you also understanding what they need, like it's about connecting. And when we have that connection with someone, that's when they go, oh, like I like you, I trust you, I want to, let's see what we can do here. And this image here is based in neuroscience around stories, where, as a storyteller, when I share a story, the person listening, their brain actually is mirroring my brain. So it's a process called neurocoupling, where you're there with me. I'm telling you a story. I might be sharing about my life. You're listening, you're tuned in, you're there with me. You feel what I feel, you empathize with me, and that builds connection, that builds empathy, and that builds trust faster than anything else does. And it's really interesting. And that's why I want to talk about stories, because it's not just any stories. Like if I sit down with you and go, hey, let me tell you about the turtle and the hare, like that's not gonna make your brain do that. It's gotta be personal and authentic stories. And what's even more interesting is that based on neuroscience, even amongst people who disagree. So even if we fundamentally disagree on like politics or whatever, the minute we hear each other's stories, that connection, that empathy, that trust, boom, it gets created. So it's one of the most, if not the most powerful tool we have in our arsenal, to ask for what we want and do that through connecting, genuinely connecting with people. And that's what I want to talk about today. And if we think about the landscape of today, what the world looks like, there's scarcity when it comes to trust. The latest trust barometer, Edelman Trust Barometer, says something like 68% of people think that business leaders are purposely misleading them. Now, it's not just business leaders, it's like in general, there's just this sense of mistrust that's happening in our world. You layer on top of that the whole pervasiveness of AI. Like, notice yourself now if you're scrolling and you see some news or some video, like, there's a doubt. Like, is this real? Who wrote this? Is this image real? Is this video real? Like, you've now become more skeptical. And then we hear people say, oh, just be authentic. You just have to be authentic. Show up as an authentic leader. But no one actually gives us the roadmap or the pathway to being authentic. Like, what does it look like? So, with that in mind, as someone who's worked in storytelling my whole career, I've noticed the gaps that storytelling couldn't bridge when it comes to building trust. And so that's how story sharing came about. And I want to talk you through the difference between the two, and then I'll give you a chance to actually craft some of your stories. But if we look at storytelling, it's really has always been about telling a good story. Like thinking about if we're at dinner table, we're with friends, or we go and watch a good comedy show. Like people want to tell a good story and have it be entertaining, and I better like make it really fun when they're listening, and end it like this. Like there's a way, there's an art to it that people are really obsessed about. And that can put a lot of pressure. A lot of people tell me, I don't have any stories. It's because they think it's got to be these really good, grand stories. So story sharing takes that pressure away and says, actually, it's not about telling a good story. It's about creating connection. So you don't have to worry about telling a good story. And then the other aspect of storytelling is that the attention is usually on the storyteller. So like again, I'm performing something, right? I'm on stage or I'm speaking at a maybe an event or something, and I'm trying to tell a good story. So it's a performance piece, and the attention, the spotlight is on me. And again, a lot of people are uncomfortable with that. Like, oh, I don't want to be about it. Shouldn't I don't, it's cringe. I don't want it to be about me. When it comes to story sharing, the story serves as a mirror for another. It's like viewing story as a service, right? What can I share from my experience of life such that maybe you'll see yourself in it? I'm now relating uh, differently to stories. I'm not making it about myself, and that takes the spotlight and the pressure off. And then finally, storytelling. We love these endings, right? That make us look good. Like we've heard it our whole childhood, happily ever after, especially when it comes to our career story. We're trying to find these really great, like triumphant moments that we come away like winning. And again, it adds more pressure because now I've got to tell a good story, make it look really good, how ends really well. We're just like, okay, I don't have stories. So story sharing sets you free from that and says it doesn't need a perfect ending, and it doesn't even need to be like neatly tied up in a bow. I can share about something I'm currently going through, and it's not wrapped up, so I don't have an ending, but I can still share about it. So I just want to pause here and check in, like, are there any questions or reflections around these, the distinction between storytelling and story sharing?
I know, like, we're in this session, we're talking about, ourselves and how, like, it's quite individualized, but I actually see this on a larger branding and marketing piece because you could easily connect that to the wine industry. And, like, it's not about like our hero product, it's actually like, how does the wine create a connection with the people that are consuming it? And I think that, I know this isn't, a marketing particularly for the wine industry, but I think it is really important that, the story becomes a mirror for others rather than look at me, look at my product, look how good I am. It's actually that service to you. So
Mm.
sorry, that was, yeah, just my reflection. I thought was quite interesting that yes, we are on a very individualized, personal Zoom, but I think it could go both
Mm.
ways.
Yeah, I love that point. And look, I come from a brand marketing background, so I'm with you, and I've worked with brands and clients who have adopted this methodology for their brand, and it lands a much more honestly authentic brand. So yeah, really interesting and really usable in that context as well. Cool. So in terms of today, I've got this is like the model that I work with leaders, but we've got a snippet of time. So today I'm really gonna zoom in on what I call story mining, which is uncovering the moments and stories from your life, and then story sharing, which is actually crafting those stories. So we're gonna do that today. And so I'm going to go through with you now a quick story mining exercise. And what I'm going to do in this part and what I ask of you is I'm going to say out loud some prompts, and I'll put them up on here on the slide as well. I'll go through the prompts one by one, and then I'll give you like a minute or two to kind of jot it down along the way if anything pops up. But I'll give you at the end a few minutes as well to jot down. All you're doing with this is just jotting down moments. So you're not writing out a story. You're just saying, for example, a moment that comes to mind. Oh, that time that I had this tough conversation with my boss. That's all you're writing down, just something to help you remember that moment. By the end of this section, all we want to do is pick one of those moments. Just pick one that's like calling to you, and we'll use that one to craft into a story together. Okay? All right. So I'd love you to reflect on moments where you did something before you felt ready. A lot of times at work we get thrown in the deep end, or it might be that we were doing something with minimal supervision, and we were like, all right, I don't feel equipped to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. And there could be multiple moments of that, but have a look and see if there's anything that comes up for you. I'll keep going and then give you more time at the end. Um, Moments in your career when you solved a big problem, whether you did it as a team or by yourself, whether you came up with the idea, but what are some of the moments you can recall that you solved a big problem for your organization or team? Times when you challenge conventions. So in every industry, there's a way of doing things. We've always done it this way, or a process that needs to be followed. What are some of the times that maybe you said, hang on a minute, to get a better outcome, let's do it another way. And you challenged that norm, and you stood up and had the courage to question it or challenge it. And what happened from there? So what are some of those moments? What's something that you were afraid of that you overcame? So maybe for some people, uh, they're afraid of public speaking and that you had to speak at an event for your company. Maybe you are an introvert, but you put your hand up to organize social events. Um, maybe um, maybe you didn't really want to go for that promotion, but you went ahead and did it anyway, even though you were afraid. So what are some moments like that where you overcame something that you were afraid of? What are some of the moments when you made something happen that wasn't predictable? So this was not going that way. Maybe something was meant to be launched at a particular time. It wasn't looking like it was going to happen, and you did something that wasn't predictable. You interjected and actually made it happen. It wasn't on track. It wasn't predictable that that was going to go well. But you intervened and made it happen. And all of this could be product related, team related, process related. So really any part of your work. And then what are some moments that made you realize you love your work, that, you have a connection to this industry more than just a paycheck to you, that it matters to you, that it means something to you? What moments stood out to you that reminded you of that? And as I said before, trust what's surfacing and choose something that's real over perfect. Even if you don't remember all the details right now, but you just remember that moment, that's okay. We don't need all that. We don't need all the exact details. Don't pick something just because it makes you look really flawless and it makes it all sound really good. And don't overthink it. So I'll give you about a minute to jot down any other moments you think of. All right. So does everyone have at least one moment that you are like, yep, happy to use this one to work on as a story today? Yeah, just give me a thumbs up if you do. How are you going, Ping? Are you still need a couple minutes, or do you think you've got a moment? You're good? Okay, awesome. All right. So now we think about what it is to ask for something, or to be able to advance our career, right? Whether it be a next um, opportunity or putting our hand up for something. The old way of asking might sound something like, hey, I've been here for 2 years now, and I work really hard, and here's all the things I've done. And I've asked around, and actually other people who have my experience level and in the same role as me, they actually make more than me. So I'd love to discuss with you about giving me a raise. That's probably what the old way could sound like. Now, I'm gonna go off slide share for a second and actually demonstrate to you how it could look like from a story sharing perspective. All right. So there I am. I'm sitting across the table, a meeting room table, and the legal person is across from me. And she's looking at this new product packaging that I'm really proud of. We're worked so hard, ready to launch. She's looking at the mock-up of the packaging. And she looks up at me, just like deadpan, straight face, and she goes, "No, you can't make these claims." And we were about to launch this new range of teas. The claims were around the functional benefits, so it helps you sleep better, soothes your throat. That brand was currently declining really badly. Sales are down, and this is where the market's shifting to. So we knew that we needed this launch, and we were ready for it. So I walked out of that meeting. I felt completely defeated, but a part of me also didn't want to give up. And I must have spent all night just like mulling over it. And then it clicked. And so days later, I went back into that meeting room, same legal person. I didn't go back with new claims, but I went back in with new product names. And the product names were Tuck Me In Chamomile, Soothe Me Lemon and Honey, and Kiss Me Peppermint. I didn't make a claim, it was just a new name. And the legal person approved it. And that moment became the start of turning the brand around, starting with that successful launch. And I'm sharing this, and why it matters is because I remember that moment so vividly because it taught me something that I still carry with me today, which is that a no isn't a roadblock. It's only a roadblock if you let it be. But sometimes it's just an invitation to think more creatively and think differently. So you can see that's a story. That's using the story sharing framework. It's a story from my career. That's a framework for then sharing the story. And then when you're done with that, then what's the ask, right? Then we can say, this is one example of something that I've really done that's shown that I've been able to go out, think outside the box. Like you don't need to even say too much because the story demonstrates it, right? So I guess before I even go further with that, like I'd love to hear kind of initial reactions around, what's the difference that you can hear between the old way and the way of using your story.
I guess you've really like solved how you creatively work, and then you've showcased to your employer or your prospects as well, like you've got some resilience and you've also got this really creative brain so you can repackage it up. So that's what I got from the story. It's not just like you've provided them with a solution, you've not come to them with another problem, or you've not just thrown your hands up and been like, oh, too hard.
Mm. Yeah, so you got to know how I work. You got to know me as a person. You've been able to say a lot about me. I've just told you like a 2-minute story, right? One example. And that would have landed more for you, like about who I am, than me going, Jenna, I'm really this, and I'm really trying to think like you, right? So that's really how we connect more with people and actually demonstrate as well like, who we are. And then again, that allows people to connect with us and get to know who we actually are.
I just have a follow-up question on
Yes.
that. So obviously, if say you're in an interview situation,
Mm.
do you try and think of these stories and solutions before you get into the interview with them? Because obviously, like it can be quite challenging on the fly to think of that. Yeah, would you practice that before an interview?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah. So I work with people. What we do is we develop what's called a story bank. And we actually look at, like, especially prepping for interviews, we usually a lot of times, I'll just take sharing off. There's like standard questions that tend to get asked, give an example when you like collaborated well, give an example when maybe a project failed and what did you do about that? So you kind of come up with maybe 3 to 5 stories for some of these typical things that they ask. We write them in this kind of way. We practice them, and people go into interviews and have this ready beforehand for sure, 100%.
And then you know how they say like, oh, do you have any like follow-up questions? Could you then, if you hadn't had a chance to tell one of those stories in the interview, could you then be like, oh, I just actually wanted to tell you about that time where I collaborated with X, Y, and Z. So then you can still like, if you've missed anything, you're able to follow it up. Is that like a good option?
Yeah, that's really smart. I always think you got to be able to lead it, right? So they might ask you one question, but you can turn it around to go, actually, you're asking me this, but that's really great. I think I'll share about this because I think it really connects. So you find a way to answer the question with the stories that you've got. I've helped a number of people with the interview process, and I had one person, one client of mine who I coached her like this, and we prepped for an interview and came up with stories for her story bank. And she'd been looking for a role for a year before that. She was like sending out hundreds of CVs. We worked on her CV with the using story-led framework, prep for her interview. She goes in for the interview, tells one of her stories, and the interviewer was like, "Wow, she got hired on the spot." So there's there's a lot of power in being able to share our stories and that connection, the way that it engages. I think the research says stories are 22 times more memorable than facts. So yeah, definitely. This is like the best uh, tool you have in your toolkit for interviews. Cool. All right. Well, I want you to have now the opportunity to do this for the moment that you picked. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go back actually and show you one at a time. So when it comes to story sharing, how we want to start a story share is we want to start by showing us a moment, right? You want to take people into a moment with you. We've been taught through listening to stories when we're young, the chronological way, like once upon a time. That doesn't work in business context. It takes too long, you lose people, you don't have a lot of time. You've got to think about if I've got 1 to 2 minutes, how am I going to tell my story in the most engaging way? And the best way to do it, it's a literary technique. So a lot of, movies, books use this technique. It's called in medias res, which is start in the middle of an action. Start with some action that's happening. It could be a moment where, I just sat there on my desk and I saw an email come through and it was something like give us that moment that kind of draws us in. So we always start with that. Then once we've done that, we can then go back a little bit and provide some context, but we don't need to give our audience everything, the whole history, like, in 1989. Like, no, it's just enough context so they understand and can follow the story. So if you think about my example, I've taken you with me into my meeting with the legal person. I've given you some context that the brand's declining, these are the new products, the market's shifting to that trend. So then this was needed. We needed to do this launch. But I didn't go into like um, what brand, what country, were they herbal teas? Like you kind of don't need to give every single detail here because again, you lose people. Once you provide a context, then you reveal the emotional peak. So this is really important. A lot of times we think that sharing our career story is about sharing those external achievements and making it almost like a list of things we've accomplished, like a highlight reel. But actually, what really connects is the emotional piece, right? So I actually brought you into my emotional state. I said I was defeated. And you may not have had the exact experience, being rejected by a legal person, but everyone can relate to that feeling of being defeated. And that's what the brain is listening for and wants to connect with is that shared emotion. So don't feel like, oh, it's a professional context. I gotta sound like a robot. No, this is the connection piece. That's why the icon there is a heart. And there could be more than one emotional peaks in a story. You could have the moment where you're deflated and then you're rejoicing because you're celebrating something. And then finally, you wrap it up with a message. So why does this story matter? Why am I sharing this? Is because this is the lesson I took from it. This is what the story means to me. This was the moment that made me realize I really love what I do. Like you wrap it up for them people are lazy and they don't want to make connections themselves, you help them bridge that to then connect it to what's the main thing that you're trying to communicate through this story. Does that make sense, the way I've explained the framework? And are you ready to give it a try with your story? Ready or not, we're doing it. All right, I'm gonna give you 5 minutes, and it's very deliberate. I'm giving you um, not a lot of time because I don't want you to overthink it. This is a draft, just put something down. You can do it in order like this, show the moment, provide context, emotional peak, and share why this story matters. So please do that with the moment that you picked. And I'll check in. I'll give you 5 minutes, but I'll check in after 3 minutes to see how you're going. And just if you get stopped along the way, just speak up. We can work it out live as well. And that's helpful for others who are listening as well when they hear some questions that come out of it. All right, that's 5 minutes now. How did you go? Did you get to a draft? Do you need a bit more time? I think someone just entered the waiting room. Hey, is it Susanna? Sorry if I'm saying it wrong. Oh, still connecting the audio. Hi, is that Susanna? Is that how I say your name? If you can hear me, we're going through a framework for sharing your story, and we'll just Jenna and Ping here have just been working on their career story, and we're about to hear from them if they're ready. How'd you go, Ping and Jenna? Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
I
just
think
stop
I
here.
got it.
Okay, and just remember this is a draft. Like it takes longer than 5 minutes to come up with something, and you'll need to edit, and writing anything takes time. So you give yourself some grace. I'm forcing you to do it rapidly so that we can get something on paper, just to be able to demonstrate the framework to you. So would you be comfortable Ping to share it with us?
Yeah. Yeah.
Great, let's hear it.
So I joined a new winery after resigning from previous work, and I got the chance to work in the vineyard and last growing season. So that was vintage 2025. The grape grows. It's an early vintage basically, and the flavor came very early in the season. So I was dropping bunches, so excessive bunches on the vine. I was dropping them in the vineyard, and then because I kind of really like Cab from Orange. It was the first wine that actually got my attention when I arrived. So because I was working in the vineyard, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna try some of the grapes because the color already turned. So I was trying the grape, and that's when I know 2025 would be a great vintage
Mhm.
because the flavor so early in the season, you can see it already, and the vine looks super, super healthy. So I was lurking on those grapes the whole growing season
Mhm.
until near vintage. I came back after holiday, and then I heard my boss talking that they have excessive Cab Franc, and he's thinking about selling some. And I was like, out of nowhere, I never actually thought, I always thought to make my own wine, but I never actually get ready. But because I know the grape is so good, if I don't make it or if I just let him sell it to someone else, I will regret. And so out of nowhere, I just said to him, I say, can I buy some?
Mm.
So he's like, oh, sure. He's like, why not? So I was just quickly think, what tank can I use? What tool can I access? What can I borrow? And then I decided to buy 1 ton of fruit from him. And I made my first batch of wine.
Mm.
And I picked it quite early because, like I said, I already taste the flavor. So what I'm waiting for is just for the data for the lab result to match the ripeness. So I actually picked 10 days earlier than my boss, even
Mm.
though he told me that Cab Franc is a variety that just 1 week extra hanging will benefit in his mind will make sure it's ripened. But I
Mm.
know the style that I want to make. I want to make a light, more feminine, more soft style. I told him straight away exactly what I want to make, how the wine I want it to taste like. And I know I have to make the call. It was my first wine, but I know I have to make the decision so that I can learn from it, no matter how bad or how good it turned out to be. So I did it 10 days before him, and then I do whatever I can to make sure the wine go through the vintage well, completely outside my normal work. And it turned out to be exactly what I told him I want it to be. And I let him taste it right before bottle to make sure he knows as well. So yeah, this is my story. I was afraid, of course, but I was excited as well. I think this experience bring back my passion for one, because my last job experience make my passion die down a little bit. But just something new, something stimulating your brain, make me feel like the love that I had for wine came back to me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. Like, it was like, you took it's like so many layers, right? You took the risk of like, I'm gonna buy it, and then you're like,
Yeah.
how bold am I? I'm gonna do it 10 days before you. Like, you're the boss, but I know what I want. Like, it shows conviction, it shows courage, and you acted even in spite of your own fear. You have such an inspiring story. Like, obviously, this is your first draft, so if you edit and tighten and practice it a bit more, it's such a beautiful story that you can start sharing right away with people. Yeah, very, very inspiring. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
And what about you, Jenna? Did you want to share yours?
Oh, that was a pretty awesome story. I
It
love
was, yeah.
hearing that. I guess, okay, I'll just do it. I'll try and do it as quickly as possible. So there I was on March 9th, 2025, standing in front of 101 guests with Joanna Griggs as my MC, and we just raised $10,000. So I'll take you back to the moment that all came together. Um, my birthday is on International Women's Day, March 8th, and every year I mark it and I see how much the International Women's Day movement has grown and grown and grown. But I've always been quite frustrated because we haven't ever had an event in the Hunter Valley before. And every passing birthday, I'm like, man, wouldn't it be good to celebrate the achievements of women and, non-binary individuals and trans women in our community? So 2024, it was around this time, it was November or December. I was like, right, next year I'm going to do something about it. So I started conceiving an idea with somebody that I knew about hosting the first International Women's Day in the Hunter Valley. And ticket sales were slow. Like, I don't have my own database, it's just me, it's people that know me. So every ticket sale that came through, I was so thrilled and I was so overjoyed. And then, many times I cried in the shower thinking, hey, I don't think this is going to happen. And when I finally got to 20 tickets, which took some time, I was like, right, now I don't owe anyone any money. So that's pretty cool. And then as it kept growing, I kept pushing and I kept going further and I kept reaching out to networks and I kept advertising and I kept talking to people. And then we officially sold out a week and a half before the event, but I was getting emails, calls, and texts leading right up to it being like, can you fit us in? Can you fit us in? And the 101 was the absolute cutoff because there was not another chair. And it was so well received by the community, and it was more than I could ever imagined. And from that, it spiraled a not-for-profit group. It's also provided $10,000 worth of funding back into the community for people that work for women rather, that work in the wine, tourism, and hospitality industries. And that all just came from one idea that I kept persevering in and crying a lot in the shower about.
Mm. Wow, amazing. Both of your stories. Like I was like right there with you. I'm like, how is she gonna get from 20 to, like and love that you took us into your world. Like this wasn't like an overconfident, like, oh, I got this. Like that's how people feel when they commit to something big and they go, I have no idea. I want to throw up. How do I do this? Like it's so real that you took us into that like vulnerable moment. Yeah, it's amazing. I love it. And how did both of you feel like using this framework to share your story? Like what are some reflections from both of you?
I actually felt quite vulnerable. I wasn't super confident sharing that because yeah, it was such a vulnerable moment. And like I'm super pleased, but like yeah, it's not something I publicly broadcast. Yeah, I don't know if you felt the same ping, but yeah, that was quite
Mm,
overwhelming.
mm,
Yeah, it's a bit because it's easy to share this with your friends or family because this is like, yeah, of course you struggle before you actually do these things and you feel proud after, but for to share it with a HR person or like your colleague, it's not that normal,
mm.
not that doesn't come that naturally, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I 100% get it. And that's where that courage piece comes in, right? And what's great about the way both of you have shared it is like, it's not, and I know Australia, there's such a big thing about like this, like, don't be braggy and it's cringe and all of this. People are super conscious about that. But the way you both shared it, it really is a story about your passion and your commitment to making something happen and your vision and you following through on your vision. It's not self-glorifying, it's in service of what's really possible. And, I'm running a workshop, a ticketed workshop, Jenna, in February, and you sharing that story inspired something in me because I'm like, would I even get 20? I'm like, oh, it's in February, this is December, how hopeless. And your sharing, it lit something in me just in listening to you. I'm like, oh, she could do it. Maybe I could do it. Like, you see, it gives people hope. So I think it's really amazing, really inspiring. And thank you for your both of your courage and your vulnerability. And that's what it takes as well, is like that vulnerability to share, because you're sharing a piece of yourself, right, with someone else. So um, yeah, thank you. And thank you for your reflections as well. I'd love to leave you with um, something that you can take forward. These are some of my clients. I'll skip through that. But I'd love to leave you, and I'll put the link in the chat. But this is a guidebook that I created that takes you through these steps of crafting your own story so that you can do that. Whoopsie, it's not very helpful, is it? I'll just put the link in the chat. And feel free to circulate that link as well, Jenna, to your network.
Thank you.
There's the link. And yeah, the last few minutes while you've got me, any questions, any final reflections? What has this, what has shifted for you from this session? Like, what are you seeing differently about how you can advance your career?
I guess I think one of my takeaways is like it doesn't have to be perfect. You just have
Mhm.
to try. Um, like I think, and I've seen this a lot over the course of the Rootlings and the webinars and stuff. It's like it's actually better when you do make mistakes because then people can reflect in that and see that in themselves. So like if you read off a script like you're a robot and getting it perfect every time, that doesn't necessarily people don't necessarily relate. It might seem possibly a little bit rehearsed. So it's totally okay to make mistakes.
Mhm. Yeah, and in fact, that's what builds that connection because we value what's real because we all have those. No one's perfect, right?
Hmm. And I
Yeah,
think
thank you.
the second key in that is like if you're say I'm thinking about interviewing at the moment, like if you get reprimanded in that interview for a mistake or if they like scoff, they're probably not your people. because that's
Mm,
maybe how they're going to react
mm,
in the future. So
yeah, I love that point. That's a really great point. It's, that's another thing about interview. It's not about someone's going to assess you, like equally you're seeing if it's a fit for you as well.
yeah, I
Any
don't know.
final reflect? I think there's someone trying to join the
I
waiting.
know. I think it's a time zone
Maybe
thing.
they got the time wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, and like with 4 different time zones, it can be hard, and our
Yeah.
website only says one. So I might just let him in,
Sure.
and I'll send him the recording, and he can see the link as well.
Mhm.
Uh, sorry,
Any,
but Ping, did you have any?
oops, I think you're still on mute.
Um, I guess just need to be confident that people can relate.
Mm,
Just need to be confident that when you share some stories, people actually are getting closer to you.
mm,
Um, yeah, I don't know. I still feel this industry. Maybe because I'm in winery, so I feel people don't talk this
mm,
in this way.
mm,
Even when we work, for instance, like I see my hand. Usually, I like to wear gloves if I'm working by my own,
mm,
but like it's an industry problem that people there are like big tough men that
mm,
you just work in a certain way, you talk in a certain way.
mm,
So I don't know. I just yeah need to feel more comfortable about sharing this thing as a whole industry,
mm.
I guess. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know.
I totally do appreciate that. And it can be the same in a corporate world. And a lot of people have those hesitations. And, I say to people, like, someone's got to go first, right? If we want to transform culture, if we want
Yeah.
to create connection, someone's got to go first.
That's very, very true. But thank you so much for hosting us today. I gained a lot from that. I'm going to go practice my stories and Ping you did too, because I know that when you go to market with your wine and you tell that story, like I'm going to love that wine and I'm going to purchase that because I love sticking it to the man. You know what I mean? So I think that's actually such a powerful story, and it like if you're going to go put it on a website, like that story needs to lead on your website
So
and you
true.
need to be
Aw,
telling everyone that story because it's so cool.
thank you.
Yeah, that's the kind of wine I want to buy.
I know I could like picture the taste when you described it. I'm like,
Yeah,
give me some of that. Yeah.
yeah,
Aw.
exactly. And like disrupt that category of, Cab Franc being a heavier style. And like I want to try a lighter style of Cab Franc, especially when it's, I think it's 35 degrees in the Hunter tonight. So
Mhm.
yeah, give me something that's light and vibrant.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear you saying this. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. Um, Namada, did you have any like final closing comments before we end the session?
I have a quote from that I adapted from Steve Jobs that I want to share. Um, and he says, the most powerful person in the world is the story sharer. The story sharer sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation that is to come. So
Oh,
that's what's possible when we share our stories.
and I love that for the Rootlings network as well, being obviously the next generation of leaders. And yeah, I see that across the country. So in many, many ways, in big ways and in really small ways too, of yeah, not disrupting the industry, but just showing up and being authentic. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And for yourself, Ping, or for anyone who's watching the recording, or for people who've missed the session due to time zones, please, I'd love to gift you this work, like a personalized session with me. So please feel free to reach out, and happy to help you craft your story just like we did together just now, and happy to help you refine it further, Ping. So feel free to reach out.
Oh, amazing. Well, Namada, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This will go up on the Rootlings YouTube and website. But other than that, I hope you have a wonderful Christmas and a very happy New Year. That goes to all the Rootlings network as well. Thank you for joining us in any session over 2025 or even just joining the network. It's been an amazing year, and I can't wait to see what 2026 and beyond holds, not only for the Rootlings network, but for all of us as well.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas and
You
Happy New Year.
See you guys.
see ya.
Bye.